Sintra is known to be a fairy tale town, but it's quite a big area, so is all of it like a fairy tale? I'm Kalie with Expats Everywhere. We are in Sintra and we're going to show you if it's a place that you could live.
Is it too far from Lisbon? Are there too many tourists who come here? Do you have to have a car?
Sintra is located about 30 kilometers or just under 20 miles from Lisbon. We'll chat a little bit later on about how easy it is to get to Lisbon and if you would even want to go there or if Sintra has everything that you need.
But before we get to that, we want to paint a quick picture of Sintra's history and why it's considered an enchanted town.
Although it's close to Lisbon, it is its own municipality and is actually densely populated. On top of that, it's a major tourist destination.
Why do so many tourists visit Sintra or São Martinho specifically? Good Instagram pictures, of course. No, not just for the gram. From the castles to the beaches to the parks, it's a photographer's paradise. The town itself is a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Now, we aren't going to go too far into the history because this is about living here now, but it's believed that there were people living here all the way back to the 5th millennium BC. Fast forward a lot and get all sorts of kings and dynasties who have been here. Why are we telling you this? Because of the castles you'll want to see. Because of its long history, you see all sorts of architectural influences from the Moors to the Romanticism period.
So if you choose to live here, now you know just a little bit about its history, and so you can pass that info on to family and friends who come and visit you and those people that want to see those areas. That being said, you'll have to remember that lots of people come to Sintra year-round. So if you don't want the buzz of tourists, this might not be the place for you.
One really important thing to note about this is prices can be higher or what's considered overpriced for Portugal because restaurants, bars, cafes, and such cater to tourists.
This also makes housing pretty high, and it's not so much just because of tourists, but because this is such a beautiful place to live that Portuguese and foreigners alike want to live here. This makes real estate in high demand. Sintra is full of old money.
There are deals though, but a lot will depend on how old the place is and where it's located. Some of the apartments for rent, let's say between 6 to 800 euros, might be older and a place where you need a car. Sintra is quite big.
If you want something like a T2 that's at least 100 square meters by a golf course, then expect to pay at least 1,500 euros. If you're okay being in one of the small villages, it will obviously be far less, but way more remote and maybe not what you're thinking. An ideal budget would be 1,000 to 1,500 euros.
The same goes for buying. You can find properties for under 200,000 euros, but will most likely need renovations and it will be in a remote location. For something new and in an ideal location, the sky's the limit, like luxury in the millions. There are T2 and T3s out there for 500,000 to 700,000 euros that are in good locations though, so if you're looking to buy, that might be a good budget to have in mind. Like we always say though, there are so many factors that go into renting and buying, so just use these prices as a reference.
When it comes to moving to a new place, safety is always something that's on your mind, no matter what stage of life you're in. We all know that Portugal is one of the safest countries in the world, according to the Global Peace Index. Sintra is also safe, and you'll see a lot of police around, some on horses, some directing traffic, some helping on the streets. However, just because it's safe doesn't mean you shouldn't be aware of your belongings. Like most tourist areas, petty theft can happen, so just watch your valuables.
Let's chat a bit about the climate of Sintra and what there is to do for those who enjoy being outside. Since Sintra is a big area, you'll have different climates depending on where you are. For example, are you up in the mountains or are you down at the beach? By the water, it will more likely be semi-arid, and up in the mountains, more humid. There's also more precipitation in the mountains, which is more common in the winter months.
In the winter, the lows generally don't drop below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, but the highs don't get much past the low 60s either. It warms up a little bit in the spring, but doesn't get out of the 60s Fahrenheit normally. The summer highs will be in the 70s and lows generally in the 60s, and sometimes even popping down to the 50s. The fall stays fairly warm too during the day, with the highs also in the 70s. But night will be a little cooler with lows in the 50s.
This type of weather allows for all sorts of outdoor activities.
Sintra is great for those who love nature. If you enjoy hiking or cycling, then this could be the place for you. On the other hand, if you like water sports or being along the coast, there are parts of Sintra you might enjoy as well. Something to note is that parts of Sintra are quite hilly, and although the downtown area is walkable, you'll want to keep in mind it's not a super flat kind of walking.
Walking is great in the downtown area, but it's not great in other parts of the municipality. Unless you plan to be right in the center where you'll be around all the tourists, then you'll want a car. The center does have tuk-tuks driving around and doing tours, and also buses that go up and down and around the mountains. Around other parts, you have buses and a few train stops, but a car is probably advisable if you're not in the center. Taxis, Uber, and Bolt are also an option, along with a little tramway.
Grocery stores are a bit sparse and spread out. There are some good hospitals in the area, like Hospital CUF Sintra, which has a wide variety of services. One notable service is in pediatric care. There are actually a decent amount of international and private schools in Sintra as well. So if you have kids, you'll find that this area has a good pediatric hospital and good schooling.
So we see that it's a good area for families with kids, but it's not a good area for those who like to party. And that goes for any age. There's not much of a night scene here. Of course, you still have your wine and beer options, and we actually enjoyed visiting a craft beer place called Villa Craft, who has a small restaurant in the happening area, but brews elsewhere in Sintra.
Since it's known to be a fairy tale and charming town, there's no surprise that there aren't clubs. If you want that, then maybe living here isn't for you, or if you want it every once in a while, you can head to Lisbon for that. Jumping on the train is quite easy, or you can always hire a car.
So this charming city is quiet and draws a lot of tourists, but it seems to be well equipped for families with a good hospital and school options. Would we live here? All right, so Sintra, what do you think?
Well, it's interesting that it's kind of known to be a fairy tale, enchanted town, and there are definitely parts of it that are. There are some beautiful parts, but it's so big that I think it's hard to just say, oh, Sintra, enchanted little town, because that doesn't really encompass the whole area. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's one area that is this enchanted town, that's a neighborhood, actually, and then there's also the nearby beaches that people can live, which would be nice if you're beach people. Right? But then the kind of interior part that's to the east of the very enchanted fairy tale part is blah.
Yeah,
It's
kind of
blah.
normal.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say it's normal. It's just blah.
Yeah, I think if you're talking about Sintra, then you're probably talking about the São Martinho area, which is like the enchanted area. But most other than that,
São Martinho, right?
Right. So other than that, it's going to be more of like a village type feel, and yeah, just not much going on, I guess. It's quite diverse actually, with having the beaches and the mountains and everything. It's quite diverse, but enchanted. Only one area.
Only one area is.
Yeah.
Which it might be enough. Look, if you have the means, the financial means to live in that area and purchase a home or rent there, hey, by all means. I think that the other, not just I think, but the other parts of Sintra that are away from the beach and out of that freguesia are cheaper.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, that's true.
So when you're saying like Sintra as a whole.
Yeah, the whole area.
Yeah, I mean, it has kind of a broader context that we need to be real about.
Because the beaches are pretty much like they're more untouched than some of the other places. So if you like that, it's beaches but a little more remote.
Yep.
It will be a bit more of village life, a little simpler, but good deals, housing and such. But what I would say, well, two things. If you want to be in the main area of Sintra, which is the fairy tale area with the castle and São Martinho Freguesia, like you're saying, it's going to be very touristy. It draws in tourists all year round because it's so beautiful.
Yep.
So there will be a lot of people there. So keep that in mind. And then the other thing,
point.
if you don't want to be in that area, then I definitely think you need a car. You have to have a car.
Also, good point, because the walking distance to the train stations could be pretty heavy.
Yeah, it's not
Right.
super connected through there as well.
Yeah. There are
And the
large highways.
Yeah. So if you're okay with a car, then that's a good area. There are a lot of good international schools up there, so
Yep.
that's a nice thing to have. What were you gonna say?
No, I was going to say they do at least have a very good craft beer brewery.
Oh yeah, there is that.
Cafeta.
There's actually a lot going on in Sintra, and it is really nice. It's not too far from Lisbon, so if you want to be out of that city feel of Lisbon, you're okay with having a car. It's a little more, there are tourists up there, a little more nature, depending if you want it to be like the mountains, hills area, or the beach. So it is for some people, but not for everyone, I would say. There's not a huge expat community in that area either.
Oh, I think it depends on where, because if you're around the international schools,
True, yeah.
So kind of in between where Sintra is and where Cascais is, you've got the international schools in that area, and a lot of families live in larger homes. they have cars, they drive to
That's
the
true.
school.
That's true.
So, but the question is, would you expat that?
I would say no, I would not expect that. Although I do like that there are schools around. I like not having a car. I like to be able to step out of my front door and there's, right there cafes and things to do. And there are parts of Sintra that are like that, but not the way that I think some of the cities feel. So I wouldn't want to have a car because the area I would want to be in is where all the tourists are too. And that can just be, after a while. So I would say no, I would not expat Sintra. You?
I would say heck no.
Oh, heck no.
Heck no. Yeah, the tourism I think is heavy. So the part that you would want to live, the tourism's heavy. Maybe the beach area, but I'm not really a beach person, so that's not a huge draw for me. And then the other side, which is kind of more eastern, right, is not very charming.
Yeah.
It's very like indicative of maybe a more rural Portugal. But it's not charming. It lacks like the charm of rural Portugal,
That's
right?
true, yeah.
It's just like these blocks of buildings and man.
Yeah, that's true. I definitely get that.
Yeah.
So we would not expat that, but it's for some people.
It is
not
for some
us.
people. And if you guys want to check out other cities that we've talked about and we've highlighted in our series, click on this playlist right here. Now let's get moving. Bye.
Bye.